Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. What a day, lots to talk about. But I actually want to talk about football tonight. That's got to be worth a like on the video. I want to talk about Zerbi to United. I want to talk about Baleba. This was a big thing I wanted to talk about this morning. I also want to unpick some of the stuff around Harry Maguire getting a new contract. Some of the stuff Ben Jacobs was saying about the left back, the midfield, Tuchel, where we go from here. Michael Carrick's rumoured to have won the Player of the Month award, by the way, despite only managing half of the month. But look, we are on a very good run at the moment. But look, obviously, I know Sir Jim Radcliffe's apologised. Apparently, the backlash from inside the club is not great. I was speaking to somebody this afternoon and they were saying lots of people very, very unhappy in the club. But I want to talk about football tonight. We can talk about, it is an evening show, so by all means, throw in your comments. But I wanted to talk about this morning, and we have to have this conversation. And I think, in fairness to you, the vast majority of you on this community and me, we've been having this conversation for about 5 months, and some people don't want to have it, and some people in Man United want to ignore it. I think I literally said on a video last week, Manchester United need to stop putting it out there that they don't care how well Baleba is playing because they believe in their scouts. Last night against Aston Villa, he got substituted after 20 minutes and sat on the bench with a towel over his head, devastated. The reason he got substituted is because he was booked after 2 minutes and he was a walking red card for the next 15 minutes. So in the incredible step, the manager had to sub him off after 20 minutes so that they didn't go down to 10 men. And this is a story of his season. It's chaotic. And look, maybe there is a really good player there. Maybe there is. But what excuse are we giving here? Like, why are we still interested? Why are we still putting it out there through credible journalists, even today, that we don't care about his performances this season? We believe we've got a good player here that will be a good player for Manchester United for the future. It's almost, I think it needs calling out. I think it's bloody-mindedness and I think it's stubborn. We have no obligation to buy Baleba from Brighton. And unfortunately for him, he's probably missed the boat. Unless Man United stick on the boat, which it looks like they're going to. But there is no doubt at all that Manchester United are not the club they need to be over the last decade. We're not. We've made some very expensive mistakes. And when there's a red flag that big, you avoid it. And the cold, harsh fact is, from August to February, he's been consistently bad. There's been 1 or 2 good performances, but he's been consistently bad. And he knows this is the season that Man United are probably going to go back for him. And yet we've got people like Stiller, Wharton, Anderson, who consistently are playing well, and he is playing really, really bad. He is absolutely fluffing his lines. It's like giving him the lead role in a West End play and he just can't remember his lines. You cannot trust that. We can't take any risks. So I'm saying right here, right now, this needs calling out because there just seems to be this, oh, it doesn't matter attitude from Man United. It doesn't matter. Of course it bloody matters. Of course it matters. If he was playing in a different league, I'd still say it matters. But in the Premier League, against the opposition he's going to be playing against next season in a red shirt, he's fluffing his lines. He's playing crap. And United are still there going, oh, yeah, we believe. This is ridiculously bad. And look, I know what we were talking about this morning. I know what we were talking about last month. And basically it comes down to incompetence and poor decision-making from people in power. And this is just another level of it. You cannot, in football, tell me that when you go for a player in the summer and then you keep saying we're going to go for them next summer, and in that season they're playing shit, it's a good idea. You can't. You just can't do it. It needs calling out. And I'd be very surprised if we don't get an ex-player or somebody with that little bit more mainstream gravitas coming out with it very soon, saying Man United cannot do this. And also, can I just add this in as well? Because we're going to talk about Zerbi and the manager situation. I don't think people realise this about Baleba. He was actually signed by Zerbi. Zerbi, big fan of his, describes him as the future of the club when he signed him in, I think it was August 2023. Zerbi utilised him as like a versatile midfielder, using him in different positions, sometimes deeper as well. And he also, I've got it wrote down here, praised his potential, calling him a specific player for our style. And they paid £23 million for him in August 2023. So I think there's a few things around Baleba that maybe add a few more red flags in light of what we're hearing about Zerbi. Zerbi's a big fan of Baleba. Man United seem to be obsessed about Baleba. And also, to add into that, Brighton paid nearly £25 million for him. So Brighton are going to want to at least 1.5 times that. They're going to want at least, what's 25 times 2, 50. They're going to want north of £60 million for a player that's playing like he's the £30 million player. And that's the cold, harsh truth as well. The fee that we're going to pay, I'm very worried about us doing this deal anyway. I think it's a huge error and I think it's a massive red flag. But for anything more than £45 million, I think it's ridiculous. Not only is it a huge risk, he is nowhere near worth £60 million. Last summer, I think there was a case to take a punt and say he might be the next Caicedo. But this summer, he ain't worth more than 45 million. And Brighton are going to want a lot more than that. So not only are we going to push forward on a deal that looks really risky, we're also going to chuck a load of money at it as well. Needs calling out. Making so many mistakes at that football club. That, to me, is a huge error. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. Daniel says, I hope you're well. Hope you had a good day, Mark, and United stand. You too. It's been an interesting day. I mean, I think this morning, yeah, I'm glad that video's done, really. Because it was just, it's not what you want to be talking about. That was the whole point. I don't want to be talking about politics and things like that. I want to talk about Manchester United. But my big issue was that Sir Jim Ratcliffe never should have said it. And this is the guy that's running the football club who just hasn't read the room. And don't think about what you think. Don't think about what I think. I know he's done his an apology, but it was almost like a sorry, I'm not sorry, you know. And the big thing is there is huge uproar within the club. There is huge uproar in the dressing room. They're not happy. So whatever you think about it, the Man United players are not happy. There's a lot of people in the club who are just not happy. So look, it's been another strange day for United. But I want to bring it back to the football because that's what we're here to talk about fundamentally, and I totally agree with that. So I've said that about Baleba. We'll talk a bit about transfers in a moment. But what's happening today with regards to the next manager of Manchester United? Well, there was obviously the Tuchel contract extension for England, which has ruled him out of a job for Manchester United. What I'm being told is that Enrique's got absolutely no intention of taking the Manchester United job, so I think we can rule him out. Ancelotti, we're being told, wouldn't come and work for this football club in a million years because he just doesn't think it's the right place for him. Having been at places like Real Madrid, PSG, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, I just think he doesn't think Manchester United is the right thing for him. So the big hitters are off the table at the moment. We did think today that Zerbi was going to take the Spurs job today. We're now hearing that he's going to take some time off and think, which is some people's interpretation that means he wants the United job. And there are certain people in the industry saying that Man United may have had a little bit of a word and said, you might not want to take the Spurs job. There might be a job for you at Old Trafford in the summer, to which case Zerbi has gone, I'll take a little bit of a break. He was very, very close to the job when they were going to sack Ten Hag. It was Ten Hag was going to get sacked after the FA Cup final. They interviewed Zerbi and they interviewed Tuchel and they messed it up. Neither of them took the job for differing reasons. So Sir Jim, Ineos are a big fan of Zerbi and he hasn't taken the Spurs job. So he's probably quite a good candidate at the moment. Well, look, I would say the same about Baleba. I think this is a huge mistake. I don't get it. I think we've had some very interesting people appointed as managers over the last 10 years, and all of them ultimately haven't achieved what we wanted them to. But I don't get the Zerbi thing. I really don't. Man United really think there's something there, and I just don't see it. I really don't. I wasn't massively impressed with him at Marseille or Brighton. I think he did a decent job. I think Marco Silva's a better coach, if I'm being completely honest, at Fulham. I prefer his style of football. I prefer the way he conducts himself. Zerbi has come out. I remember talking about Zerbi when they were going for him after Ten Hag, and there were some quotes that I remember speaking about at the time, and they absolutely baffled me. It was like, it doesn't matter. It was quotes like, it doesn't matter if you win as long as you play well and stuff like that. And I'm like, that ain't gonna wash at Man United, mate. It does matter about winning. Of course, it matters how you win. And I don't think he's got the personality or the aura to manage the huge beast that Manchester United is. So look, I think where the development is today, Tuchel's out the picture, Enrique was never in the picture, Ancelotti was never in the picture, and Zerbi's still in the picture. There are still other options. Nagelsmann has been mentioned, but obviously is managing Germany. Glasner, Iriola, and Marco Silva have been mentioned. But what I want to say is, and I've said it a couple of times over the years, that's not best in class. And I think we just need to realise we have got awful owners with the Glazers, and we've got a guy in Sir Jim Radcliffe who seems to be competing to be a worse owner than the Glazers. I mean, impossible in my mind, but he seems to be having a proper good go to be worse than the Glazers as an owner of Manchester United. But they are not worthy of this great football club. And if I was in charge of Manchester United, just to give you an example, and I'm sure you'd be the same, if I was in this situation and I was in charge of Manchester United, I would be speaking to Luis Enrique and saying, we want you. We want you. You're the best. Man United is a sleeping giant and we want you as the manager. And if he said no, I'd say why? And if he said because the money's not enough, I'd say, well, let's work on that. And if he said, well, also, I don't like the way your board works, I can't be told what to do by people like Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada, then I would say, well, we'll work on that as well. And I'd find a way to get him to get the job, because that's what winners do. You don't just go, well, he doesn't want the job. He's signed a new contract there. He doesn't want the job. He doesn't want the job. That's not best in class. Best in class is he's managing somewhere else. I want him. That's what it is. That's how you do it. That's how you go and get the best in class. You don't go, well, we want best in class, but they're not available. They're not available. They don't want the job. They don't want the job. You can't get best in class when you go, we want the best manager, but you will have to work under Wilcox. You will have to work on a limited budget. You will have to do as we tell you. You're not going to get the best in class then. You're going to get a puppet. You're going to get the best puppet. Best in class means getting the best manager. There's a hint in that, manager. But we don't want a manager. We want a head coach. So we are being smokescreened. We are being lied to. They are not going to run a best-in-class managerial recruitment process. They are going to run a best puppet head coach recruitment class. So you are going to be looking at people like Marco Silva, Iriola, Zerbi, Glasner, Michael Carrick, all coaches that will agree to work under this regime. So we're not going to get these best-in-class people. I mean, we're just not going to do it. And that, I'm afraid, is going to lead to failure in the long term, because we already know that being told what to do by this board will lead to failure. So I'm looking at the managerial situation now and I'm like, in a way, we've been spared the propaganda of Thomas Tuchel because he signed a contract. And I think Tuchel would have stayed a name all summer if he hadn't signed that contract. So the fact that he signed it has actually given us a reality bite. I think that realistically, they're going to give it to... Look, you know, I'm going to bore you to tears. You know what I think. I'm 90% sure they're going to give it to Carrick. He's cheap. He knows all the coaches. He's British. You know, they're going to give it to Carrick. They are. But I agree with you, Airbus. I think there is a manager out there, and there's probably 3 or 4 that are currently in jobs that you'd have to pay for that are better than what's available. And maybe, you know, maybe some people want to say Eddie Howe. I don't think that's the right point, but I think Unai Emery is. I think Unai Emery would be exactly what Man United need. When you think about what he did coming into Aston Villa after Gerrard and basically has kept them winning for 3 years, I think he is exactly what Manchester United need. But we won't do it because they'll go and go, well, we want best in class, but we can't go for Unai Emery because he's got a 20 million release clause. So that's too expensive. We don't want that. So we won't do anything like that. We won't do anything like that. What do you think happens if they give Carrick the job? Well, I think if they give Carrick the job, we've got absolutely no idea about what his future formation is. We've got absolutely no idea how he's going to replace Casemiro, Bruno, Harry Maguire and Luke Shaw. In fact, it looks like he's going to keep most of them. We've got absolutely no idea how he can operate beyond being an interim. We've got absolutely no idea how he's going to react to actually having to kick people out of the club and recruit new players. We've got absolutely no idea how he can work under this board. And we've got absolutely no idea how he's going to deal with bad results and pressure. So apart from that, Michael Carrick might work. we don't know anything about Carrick, in my opinion. We don't. I don't think managing a club for a few months, playing the way they want to play in a back four with players that are going to leave, I don't think it's going to happen. What do you think about Pochettino, Dave? I think that name is one I gave you a month ago, and even I'd forgotten about it. I think Pochettino is a name to definitely keep involved, and you know what? There's a lot of people that don't like Pochettino, and it takes me back to the Ten Hag days, because it was Ten Hag versus Pochettino, and I really wanted Ten Hag. And a lot of that was because I liked the way Ajax were playing, and I felt that he was the right manager to go for. And I felt like Pochettino was the media darling, and I don't like the media telling Man United what to do. And so I went with Ten Hag. But I think Pochettino would be a better pick than Carrick. I do. I think he's got a tremendous pedigree, and I think Pochettino would be an interesting one. He'd be a punt, but he's probably a better punt than Carrick at the moment. But there's a huge amount of work to do at Manchester United, and I did like what came out of the club 2 days ago, that they are set on a manager who's proven experienced and can handle the press in this country. Well, how many people can do that? How many people can do that? And Madison says Pochettino is a yes man. Mate, he is a yes man. And that's what we're going to get. Nothing's going to change that. You're not going to get a Conte. You're not going to get a Tuchel. You're not going to get an Enrique, and you're not going to get an Ancelotti. You are going to get a yes man. So you've got to take the best yes man you can. I think we've got to be realistic. Let me just catch up with these super chats, because I've got quite a few bits to go through tonight. Thanks everyone who's tuning in as always. Please do share the video and smash a like on the video as well. Rajaf says, what's your thoughts on Sir Jim's apology and club statement? Well, the club's basically put a statement out, not a statement, a post saying that the club's inclusive and everybody is welcome, which it has to do, and it should have probably done it a little bit earlier. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised for his use of words, but doubled down on his feelings. I don't mind that. I don't mind him. In fact, I actually respect him for doubling down on it. I would hate him to have apologised and said he didn't mean it. That was never my issue. So it's a sorry, but I'm not sorry. But ultimately, I go back to my point. I never had a problem with what he said. People are entitled to have opinions. Like, there's worse opinions than that about what the UK should do. I'm not offended by what he said, even though some people are. I'm not. What bothered me is that he's the owner of Manchester United, and we're a shit football club under him, and he sat there pontificating about UK governmental policies. You're the owner of Man United, and that's not... If you're Man United captain, if you're Bruno Fernandes, and you sit and do an interview and you start talking about politics, it's going to be a big deal. You can't cry, well, I'm just talking about my own personal beliefs. And if you're the owner of Man United, the same thing's going to happen. And that's where he went wrong. To think that he can... It's almost disrespectful to Manchester United to think that he thinks he can sit on a Sky News and talk about governmental policies and it's not going to be related to Man United. It's almost like he doesn't understand that as the custodian of Manchester United Football Club, as an owner, anything he says will always be attached to Manchester United, basically. I don't understand the hype around Zerbi. I don't think he's better than Carrick, Eric Ten Hag or Amrim. It feels like a weird cult around him, says John. I definitely agree, John. Definitely agree. I think with... Look... Ineos have their ideas. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has his ideas. Do you trust those ideas? No. It doesn't mean he's going to go and appoint somebody we think we should appoint. Naveen says, I'm scared that the Glazers are front runners to buy RCB, the cricket team. The reason they're buying is we got the greatest player ever called Kohli and biggest club. Yeah, they just want to make money out of cricket. I mean, I don't want to worry you, Naveen, but if you are a fan of the IPL and you are a fan of RCB, good luck. Because there is absolutely no way that the Glazers woke up when they were like younger and went, we love cricket. Oh no. No, that's money. That's just another sport where they've seen we can make some money there. If they truly want best in class, get rid of Wilcox first and then get the best and the best. I mean, I didn't want to bring this up. I got told this about 10 days ago and I don't want to talk about it really because I don't think it will happen. but the source was decent. I got told about 10 days ago, there's a very good chance Jason Wilcox will get the sack in the summer. I would love to believe it's true. I don't think Sir Jim Ratcliffe is behaving like that's going to happen. You could theorise that maybe they're just keeping it all okay for now. Now, that would be change, but we'll have to wait and see. But as you say, if they want best in class, they need to get rid of people like Wilcox and then get the best director of football. The reason I think that's such a great comment, Mike, is because if I was Sir Jim Ratcliffe or the Glazers and I wanted to bring in Luis Enrique, I know I've got to have a director of football that Luis Enrique respects. And look, maybe what I was told about 10 days ago will happen. Maybe we'll bring a really good director of football in and a really good manager will come in and work with them. And maybe that's the way around it. Because I think the barrier you've got at the moment is, if I'm Luis Enrique, I might be interested in Man United, and I might be interested in the transfer budget, and I might be interested in working with this squad and bringing my own players in. But I wouldn't be interested in working under Jason Wilcox, who basically halfway through a season sacked a manager he'd employed. So I wouldn't want that. But if Sir Jim Ratcliffe said to me, don't worry about him, he's gone in the summer, we're bringing this person in, and you like that person, then you suddenly get the job. To me, it just sounds too idealistic, too much like a dream. But Wilcox, Barada, whoever, they will be a barrier because people will look at them and go, I don't want to work with them. I don't want to work with them. J-Lo says, ironic and truthful that Sir Jim and Glinios run the football team like the UK. Overpaid and underqualified players hanging around on the fans' dime, bought in and never leave. Let's trade Romero for Mainu and Lacey. Need a centre-back, says United for real. Yeah, we're never doing that. Hi, Mark. Zerbi is a red flag like Baleba towards the end of his Brighton stint. I'm sure he fell off, says Dan. Hence, huge error and both people on our thumbnail tonight. I wouldn't go anywhere near either of them personally. Zerbi and Baleba would be a huge double roll of the dice. We're not in a position to take those kind of risks, says 1 Inch Wonder. I agree. I think that's one thing I would say about the summer altogether. I was doing an interview today with a German outlet, which I, because of the Bundesliga, I thought, well, I'll do that. And they were asking me about the future. And I said, there's a short-term future under Carrick where we need to get Champions League football. And then there's the biggest summer since the last biggest summer where we've got to get the right manager in and the right players in and remove the right players as well. And no Man United fan is getting ahead of themselves. I think we're looking at the end of May. Can we be in the Champions League? If we are, that's good. And then you go into this summer that's going to define probably the next 5 years. And you've got to get the best of everything you can get. And the only way you're going to do that is by not taking risks. If you start taking risks, we're going to be... If you don't solve problems or you start taking risks, we're going to have problems. Michael Carrick will be a risk. Like, I'm not here to talk about whether Carrick should get the job or not. That's not the point. But he will be a risk if they take the job. Should they be taking a risk? There's always risk with everybody, but there's different levels of risk, of course. Chickens Colony says, I'm sorry for this, but why United fans in England don't do anything about the owners? There should be protests every day. It's amazing. I don't know. Would rather Ange over Zerbi, says Chaos Theory. Evening, Mark. Looking good like usual. What moisturiser do you use, says Isaac. I don't know that I do use a moisturiser, actually. Well, no, I don't. I would know. I don't use a moisturiser. Not being horrible, but I don't want Baleba, says Mike JW. He's been terrible all season. I would rather get Tonali or Anderson or both of them. And again, Mike JW is hitting the bars because you're absolutely spot on. Tonali is less of a risk than Baleba. So it fits in with that policy, doesn't it? You go for less risk. There's always risk, but you go for less risk. So Tonali as a midfield signing is probably giving you 25% risk when you take into account his ability, his experience, his age, probably 25% risk. Baleba, age, performance, wage, transfer fee, you're probably knocking it up to 75% risk. So there's always risk, but one's risk is less than the others. So I take the Tonali risk. In relation to manager, you go for someone like Zerbi, Carrick, I think there is maybe 50% risk. I think if you go for someone like Enrique, Ancelotti, there's probably 10% risk. So, you know, there's always going to be a risk that things are going to go wrong. But my strategy on the board of that football club would be, for manager recruitment, would be, okay, show me the risk and go with the least risk all the time. How was your day, Marks, is watching YouTube? Tiring. I'm tired today. You know what, as well? Just, I'm not speaking out of turn. I've not signed any contracts. Today, I've been offered Sky News, BBC News, about 5 different news interviews. Not sport, news, talking about Sir Jim Radcliffe. And I don't know whether you agree with me or not on this, and I totally respect those news outlets. I was offered about 4 or 5 from about 7 o'clock this morning until about 1 o'clock today. They were just coming in all the time. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And I always see that if I get asked to do that stuff, that's a representation of the community that we've built. I said no to all of them in a polite way. And my answer was, I don't do politics. I'm not interested in politics in football, and I don't do it. The reason I spoke about it on the United stand is we don't dodge big topics, whether it's Mason Greenwood, whether it's Sir Jim Radcliffe. We will discuss it, but unwillingly, I'll discuss those things because I don't really want to go down the road of what I think about it. And I know exactly if I'd done those interviews, it would have got into, because it's news, what do you think about the colonisation comment? What do you think about his policies? And I'm not about that. I'm not about that either way. So I don't want to be championed as, I've seen other people like going, it's a disgrace what he said and I'm dead against it for this, and you know, showing their politics. And that's fine. I've seen content creators showing their politics by going, I disagree with Sir Jim Radcliffe because of this, and this, and I'm dead against it because it's against my principles and it's against my... I'm not doing that. I am not doing that. I respect both sides of the argument, and I respect both. Well, there's not both sides. There's left, there's right, and there's centre. I respect everybody's opinion because I'm not imparting mine on you. I'm not interested in that. My politics are my politics, and I'm not interested in sharing them. What I am interested in is Manchester United's name being dragged through the mud again at a time when we're meant to be trying to building something, and this person's meant to be building it, and he's shown me absolutely no trust, vision, or competence. So it's been a tiring day because I just want to talk about football, and unfortunately, it's been dragged into it. And I don't actually agree with those Man United fans who have done videos or articles imparting their opposite politics onto us, saying Sir Jim Radcliffe's wrong, because they're just as bad. Oh, so his politics aren't right and yours are, and that's why he's wrong. That's not why he's wrong. He's not wrong because of what he said in relation to what he believes. He's wrong for saying it as an owner of Manchester United. If he wasn't the owner of Man United and he'd sat and done that Sky News interview, no one would have given a shit. They wouldn't. It's the Man United thing. And the flip of that coin is, if he'd sat there and said, I love immigration. I think loads of people should come into this country and take benefits and work in this country because I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I'd still be saying the same thing. He shouldn't be doing that. So I just want to leave it. It was wrong what he said and move on. But I'm not going to bloody do interviews about it. Somebody asked that question. I respect your approach to those comments. Love talking about football, says Baz. Thank you. Well, I just want to get back to that. I do, because I think we all have different beliefs, and that's what makes us great. Some of us think Deleu's crap. Some of us think he should win the Ballon d'Or. Some of us think Luke Shaw should be sold. Some of us would give him a 10-year deal. Ricky. Some of us think Bruno's unsellable, and some people would do it for 20 million. I like those different opinions. That's what's made us what we are. I love those conversations, and I'll go for it two-footed if it's football related. But we're all going to have different opinions. There will be idiots in this chat. Oh, I've just called you idiots. There will be idiots in this chat who watch Mrs. Brown's Boys. It's not a problem because we're not here to review your sitcom preferences. We're here to talk about football. I hope Newell buy United. He only wins, says Chickens Colony. Piers Morgan Bridge, says 1 Inch Wonder. Give me Bruno. Oh, mate, I could never do what Piers Morgan does. Oh, God. It would exhaust me. Football football, I think you can debate football, and yeah, but if you can debate football, you can sit on the fence, you can debate both sides, you can see both sides. Politics, fucking hell, it's too absolute for me. Give me Bruno G every day of the week, says Evan Whelan. Carrick is similar to Pep, Mourinho, and Enrique. Oh, here we go. This is a comment for the ages. This, you know, when you read something and you go, oh God, what am I about to read here? Okay, so let me just give you a bit of a background. Michael Carrick managed Middlesbrough in the Championship, did quite well, but got sacked. Here we go. Charlie Garrison. Carrick is similar to Pep, Mourinho, Enrique, Arteta, and Sir Alex in terms of who they were as a player. Carrick was learning and studying under Sir Alex. You go for it, Charlie. I completely disagree with the names you've likened him to, and I think Michael would as well. But you do you, Charlie. And that's what I'm talking about. That's opinion. Although I'm against giving the interim the job, if Carrick gets his Champions League football, I would rather he be the manager than Zerbi. No Baleba, please, says Supreme United. Yeah, well, I've said this multiple times, and there's a couple of things I want to bring in from Ben Jacobs as well. I've said this multiple times. I think with Carrick, it almost gets to a point with what's the alternative. If the alternative was Southgate, then I would want Carrick. If the alternative is Pochettino, I would want Pochettino. If the alternative is Enrique, I would want Enrique. If the alternative is Glasner, I might want Carrick. Obviously, he's got to get Champions League football first. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think it's... This is why when Roy Keane said, under no circumstances can it be Carrick, that is an opinion. I respect it. I don't agree with it, because what if the alternative is Southgate? You can't say under no circumstances. You've always stuck up for Arteta. Was he best in class when Arsenal appointed him? Difference between him and Carrick maybe is that Arteta got backed, says Eric. Well, I also think with Arteta, that Manchester City didn't stumble on Arteta, did they? They chose Arteta. Arsenal chose Arteta. They went for him as Pep Guardiola's experienced assistant coach, and they interviewed him and they gave him the job, and they wanted him and they backed him. Michael Carrick has come in as an alternative to Ollie as an interim. It's a little bit different, isn't it? So that's why I think he's got to go through the recruitment process. I wonder why no one's interested in buying the club, says Chicken Colony. I was having this conversation with somebody about 2 weeks ago. Somebody I think is capable of starting the conversations to get this to happen. So somebody quite interesting. And all I got was, it's very, very difficult to do it. I don't come into contact with many multimillionaires, but when I do, and they know who I am, which is rare, even rarer, I do say, do you not know people who can just start the process, consortium, whatever? Because my firm belief is that there are people out there that aren't thinking about it, but could do it. I think there are people out there that I think this fan base is ready for it. I said this morning. Let's park whatever it was and why it happened. Manchester United, the Glazers, Sir Jim Radcliffe, Ineos have never been so vulnerable. They've never been so vulnerable. The protests are a statement of upheaval, but they are only a statement of upheaval. They are not going to make a change. As good as those protests are, they don't have the money to buy the club. Nobody does. So now is the time for somebody to step forward and go, I want to buy Man United. I've got the money. I want to buy Man United, but they won't sell it to me. And then you're laughing, because you then link in with the 58 communities like this and go, we want them out, but we need your help to get them out, and we're going to support you to do that. But at the moment, there's just nobody stepping forward to do it. The problem with the last process was that it was on the Glazers' terms. Obviously, Qatar went through the process and got, the carpet pulled from under them at the end. They had no power. I think the way now forward is you can't negotiate with, nearly said you can't negotiate with terrorists. You can't negotiate with the Glazers because they hold the cards. You've got to force them out. You've got to start a fire and smoke them out. And to do that, I think the fan base is ready to do it. We need someone to spark it. And what I mean by that is we need someone who goes, I want this club. I've got the money and this is what I'm going to do with it. But you can't have a chancer. You can't have somebody who goes, I've got the money, but they haven't really, Could I buy it? Fucking hell. I'd love to, but I haven't got the money, mate. You're the guy who wanted Qatar as owner, who literally treat immigrants as slaves and all the other human rights. Majority of UK agree with Sir Jim, says Red Army. I think we'll just leave that one there, won't we? If you agree with it, fine. If you don't, I ain't wasting my time on it either. I'm going to throw a name out there that no one has spoken about. Whack him low. No idea if he's a yes man or not, but I think we should look at him. What, Stinky Fingers? No chance. He ain't. No. Not for Manchester United, no. Limitless Performances. We need Gattuso for the media clips about United ownership. And thank you very much to Rajaf. I don't understand the hype around Zerbi. We've done that one as well. Surely Jim don't want another foreign manager and midfielders. His class of 99. I think the next owner will be Chinese, says Chickens Colony. And if we do not keep Carrick, I would go for Marco Silva. I like the way he plays football, but I can see him at Spurs or maybe in Europe, says Midri. I don't know what I think about Marco Silva being Man United manager. I don't know how his personality would match up to the media scrutiny. But it's the same with Iriola, it's the same with De Zerbi, it's the same with Carrick, it's the same with everybody else. But the way Marco Silva plays football with Fulham is the closest I've seen to anybody playing like Sir Alex Ferguson used to play. He plays with wingers, he passes it, he plays possession. I think Fulham play really, really good football. But it would be a huge statement of trust to do it. Yeah, it would be. Right, I'm realising I am actually meant to be starting this kickoff with art. This show has flown by. It's clearly been a good show. Thank you everybody for getting involved. Don't worry, we've got the morning show, so I can go through into some of it. But there was something I wanted to talk about. Oh, somebody said, what about this Harry Maguire new deal? Well, the source ain't great. So yeah, the source isn't great, and I think it's a mistake to give I like Harry Maguire, but I think it's a mistake. We're playing a back four now. We've got Yoro, Heaven, De Ligt, Martinez. That's 4 centre-backs, and we're going to keep Harry Maguire. He is not going to want to just sit on the bench as a cheerleader. He's going to want to play, which means you're benching probably one of the younger players. I think we've got to, at some point, we've got to start moving forward. And Harry Maguire, Dalot, Luke Shaw, Casemiro, they've all been here. Well, not Casemiro. I don't know why I said that. He's leaving. But Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, Dalot have been here for a very long time. Very long time. And we're clearly going to go through another rebuild in the summer. Do we need those players to be part of yet another rebuild? Without getting personal, no. I think we need to be moving on. And I understand if you've got 32-year-old Paul Scholes or 32-year-old Roy Keane. I understand why you want to keep that experience around. But 32-year-old Harry Maguire, who has only really understood failure and the occasional Champions League qualification, that's probably experience I could do without for where the club is at the moment. So I like him, but I think we've got to start being ruthless and we've got to start moving on. I don't really see. I understand the experience argument. I do understand it. He has been through a lot, but you don't pay 80 grand a week for somebody who can tell you stories about them being a lot. You pay 80 grand a week for somebody to, and it'd be more than 80 grand a week. He's going to want to play. And I think you're just going to hinder. I mean, Lenny Oro was brilliant the other night. I know who I'd be picking from now on. You know, I know what I'd be doing. 1 Inch Wonder says, TUS chat knows no king apart from the king in the north, whose name is Mark. Okay, getting a bit weird now. Mark, thank you for always being consistent and telling it how it is. Love Carrick as a player, but we need 8 players in the summer. Glazers out and Sir Jim out, says David. Do you think this is the end for Sir Jim? I think from this point, the only way he's got any chance, and I always think there's a way back. The only way he's got a way back is to remove Wilcox, bring in a really good director of football that allows him to bring in a really good manager. He somehow finds 400 million and backs that manager, and we properly go for it next season. But they're the 3 components for me. You need to bring in a proper respected director of football that a proper respected manager will work with, and 400 million quid. And if he does that, then there's half a chance. If he doesn't do it, then we're always going to keep failing, aren't we? But whether he can survive what he's done in the last 24 hours, you know, today's headline to tomorrow's chip paper, I'm sure he can. You know, you do what many people do. You just disappear for a couple of weeks. And to be honest, he's disappeared for a few months. He very rarely talks. So it'd be very easy for him to just go quiet now for a bit and it will blow over, I'm pretty sure. Okay, I've got to get over to That's Football because this show's absolutely flown by. Daniel says, I know I say it a lot, but I just want to say thank you to you, Beth, and all the team and community for today's shows. Always appreciated. Yeah, well, there was a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about from Ben Jacobs' interview with Beth, but I suppose that's more of a push to go and watch the interview because there was stuff about left backs, wingers, midfielders. There was a lot in there, which I may get a chance to. I may get a chance to discuss some of it tomorrow, but you never know what the headlines are going to be tomorrow. What about Inzaghi, says Luca. Too low profile. Lee Galdart says, well done for avoiding politics for 10 years. Football is my escapism from the harsh realities of life, and Sir Jim is out of order. Well, we'll keep trying to do it because I think it's important. We've got enough to argue and debate without falling out and debating politics. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Get yourself over to That's Football. I'll be there in about 5 minutes. Brentford against Arsenal tonight. I'll speak to you all in a bit.